Just loading up. Okay, so we are live. It's just going to load in a couple of seconds, and then Shane, you can start in the next
Thanks,
10
Adnan.
seconds.
Right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We'll just wait a couple of seconds for everybody to join. In the meantime, please let us know where you're joining in from. We'd love to know. Um, and yeah, we'll just wait a little bit for people to be joining. Right. So, thank you for joining us today for our webinar on why more families are choosing Dubai for their children's education. My name is Cheyenne Carvalho, and I'll be your moderator for today. We'll be with you for around the next 60 minutes, sorry. So please feel free to use the chat box for any questions that you will have, and we will address them at the end during our Q&A session. Um, so while Anissa isn't joining us live today, a quick note of introduction. She's the founder of Dawia Family Office and works closely with African entrepreneurs and investors to support their global expansion while protecting their legacy. Her focus is on building long-term opportunities and strengthening the networks that empower our African markets to thrive. Uh, joined us today is John Milne. So, as the CEO of Constellation Education, John helps families make informed, strategic choices about schooling in the UAE. With over 2 decades in leadership in top UK and international schools, including the Philippines and Dubai, he brings a global perspective to academic planning. John is known for guiding families through competitive admissions with clarity, warmth, and a deep understanding of what shapes long term success. Welcome, John, to today's session.
Thank you, Shane.
Last but definitely not least, we have Lucy. She's an education consultant with over 25 years of experience guiding families through every stage of a child's learning journey, from early years to university as well. Trained at the Edinburgh and Cambridge universities, it's always hard for me to say that. Her academic foundation underpins a deep expertise in school placements, learning support, and send strategies. She works closely with families to ensure each child thrives academically and emotionally as well. She also trains educators and parents, bringing a practical and compassionate lens to the entire educational experience. Wow, that was a long one. Welcome, Lucy, to today's session. So excited to the contributions.
Thank you.
So, in today's discussion, it's very close to our hearts. More and more families are asking us not only how to relocate to Dubai, but how to make sure their children are prepared for life beyond school. So, the purpose of today's webinar is to inform you about schools and education in Dubai, the admission process, the culture, and what the standards are for this area of the world. How can a Dubai education fit into an aspirational family's vision for their child's future? So I think this question will be addressed to Lucy.
Yes, thank you, Shane. So at this point, I just simply want to set the scene. The education scene in Dubai is exciting, it's vibrant, and it's thriving, all the way from kindergarten through to university. There's a truly international education on offer in Dubai, and opportunities are available for every curriculum and pathway. There'll be more about those in a little while. There are more than 250 private schools in Dubai and 150 early years settings. Most are coeducational and most are K-12. As the population of Dubai grows, families are staying for longer and more children consider Dubai to be their home. So then the university landscape is now also blossoming, meaning that you can use Dubai as a gateway to the rest of the world, or you can see it as your final destination. As with all places that are experiencing high growth, some schools are excellent and highly oversubscribed, others are less so. John and I in Constellation Education are here to help you identify the best schools for your child, their goals, and your family aspirations as a whole. One of the really exciting things about a Dubai education is that your child can springboard to global universities and careers. Dubai is a global melting pot where you have a whole range of curricula to choose from: the UK national curriculum, the USA approach, the international baccalaureate, which means that opportunities are limitless.
Thank you, Lucy, for this great introduction. So, moving on, and this question I believe we'll pose to John. What are the key ingredients in schools in Dubai that ensure there's a perfect setting for every child?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. It's really exciting considering schools for your child in Dubai for a range of different reasons. And as you've suggested, Shane, the good news is there's a school for every child. Lucy mentioned the numbers. There is a school for every particular type of personality and every particular kind of need. Some of the key ingredients that we would be looking for in terms of the best schools for your child would be the best all-round facilities. And again, most of the schools have the whole gamut of facilities, from academic facilities to sports facilities to drama to dance, etc. So there are many of the best facilities in the world in schools in Dubai. There are lots of experienced teachers in Dubai, which again is crucial, which means that your children will be well taught. There's a truly global mix of international students, which again means that your child's going to be experiencing different types of personalities, different types of backgrounds, and they're going to be developing their own outlook. There are very high expectations in schools in Dubai, which I think is very crucial in terms of learning outcomes for children. Schools are safe, and there's just an energy and an optimism and an enthusiasm about schools in Dubai that really motivate the children to want to learn and to do really, really well. In addition to that, the academic results are world class. On average, the best schools in Dubai are outperforming other international schools when it comes to A levels and IB in particular. And they're all offering internationally recognized qualifications such as Cambridge, such as A level, such as IB, which again set them up beautifully for the rest of their lives once they leave high school. And then I think the final key ingredient that families can look forward to when they consider schools in Dubai is that both Dawia and Constellation Education provide wraparound support for families and for their children when they transition to schools here in the UAE. We can help with understanding children's strengths and weaknesses. If they need some tutoring, coaching, or mentoring, we can help them. If they need some particular support in terms of special educational needs, again, we can provide world-class support in that area. And then obviously advice and guidance around universities when the time arrives. So whatever the needs of the families, we can support them and their children to make sure that they are successful in their educational journey.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for this introduction. In this section, we're going to be digging a little bit deeper into the systems of schools here in Dubai, what they offer. Question for John. How do families approach starting to narrow down their options when moving to Dubai?
Thanks, Shireen. I think the number one piece of advice I would give families is to use educational advisors like Lucy and myself. As Lucy mentioned, there are huge numbers of schools, and so navigating that landscape is very, very difficult. The reputation of a school, the inspection rating of the school, the academic outcomes of the school are all very, very difficult to interpret if you don't have the inside knowledge and you don't have the experience of understanding what parents think about a school. um, is a school, just because it's premium priced, the best school, or are there other schools that are more competitive but just as good? Again, using an education advisor is the best way of cutting through all of that. It's also very important to use educational advisors in terms of understanding what the different curriculum options are for your child. So again, depending on where you've come from and where you would like your child to go to in terms of university, using education advisors to help you understand the differences between the UK national curriculum, IB, US curriculums, bilingual schools, etc., is also something that educational advisors can help with. So understanding a child's interests and strengths is something that only really an educational advisor can help with. The schools will tell you one story, but as experienced educators like Lucy and me can tell you, we can read beyond the headlines and cut through all of the noise and provide families with the best environment to make sure that their child is happy and motivated and therefore successful.
Right. So I just one more question onto this one. Should a decision be based more on who a child is today, for example? So what their learning style is, how well they adapt, and what are their needs? Do you also have that service where you assess the child and suggest a school for him to go to or her?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, Shine. And I know that Lucy will probably mention this later on in the presentation, but one of the earliest parts of our support will be to properly understand the child. You know, what are they like? What are their passions? What are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? Because the better we can understand that, then the closer we can match them to the best school that will bring out the best in them and set them up for success in the future. So that's really important in terms of the first conversations and the first meetings that we have with the family and the children, is getting to know them, because it might be the best school on paper in terms of the price and the inspection rating and the academic outcomes, but it might be wholly inappropriate for a particular child who lacks confidence or has a special educational need that might be addressing. Or equally, if it's a very capable, very able, very bright child, just because a school places children into certain types of universities doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best school that will challenge them.
Okay, so we have here a question from Anisa in the chat box. So, how do you understand the child when even the parents might struggle to? So, I think John has touched on that a little bit, and we're probably going to be speaking about it a bit later. In case this is not addressed, we will come back to it during the Q&A section. So, moving on. If we decide that we would like to take the opportunities of a Dubai education, for example, could you tell me more about the actual process and what steps need to be taken? And I believe this will be Lucy getting forward.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because the process of joining a school in Dubai may be unfamiliar to you. It may not be one that you're using currently. It's quite a long process, and to give yourself the best chances of getting your child into your preferred school, it is best to take your time over this process. As has been mentioned, the popular schools can get incredibly oversubscribed. And this is what John and I do for our day job. We support families through this process. And as he's already said, and linking back to Anissa's question just then, it's absolutely crucial to find the right school for each and every child. And not one school might be the right for, if it's right for one child, it may not be the right place for another child. Part of our expertise is that over the years, John and I have probably worked with thousands, thousands and thousands of students and their families. And what we do is we find out about children's strengths, children's weaknesses, children's areas of confidence, children's areas of passion, and families' aspirations, family setup, all those different aspects that go towards making a child a person. And we will address those within finding the right school for your child so that they are comfortable and happy and at ease where they are and ready to thrive, ready to blossom, and ready to go and take on the world. So, back to actually finding the school. About 1 to 2 years before you intend to move to Dubai, you need to be starting to look at identifying a long list of schools. And as I've said, this can be something that we can help you with. You need to be looking just at very, very basic things: location, curriculum, age range, and then start to get your long list from there. The next stage is to look at availability for these schools. And this is where a lot of families come a bit unstuck because they leave that too late. Seats can be very limited in schools in Dubai. Then that will give you a shorter list of schools. And the next really important step to take is to visit the schools. They will have visiting on very frequently, often in group trips, or we can arrange individual trips. We can accompany on trips as well, and we always provide things to look out for when you're on your school visits to help parents to look for the right things when they're looking at a school, so that they're looking beyond the classroom decorations and things, and they're actually looking at the fundamentals that will suit their child. Does it have the right atmosphere? Does it have the right sporting things in place? And can you see your child making friends and thriving here? After you've done your school visits, it's time to register your interest in a school. This will involve paying a compulsory non-refundable fee. It's not large, but it's essential, this fee, in order to progress an application. You will then, depending on the age of your child, be invited to sit examinations, interviews, or assessments to ascertain your child's suitability for the school. For the younger children, these are often geared around seeing how their interactions are and whether they're able to follow instructions, and socially, are they well developed? For the older children, it's more geared towards academics. Your child may have to sit exams with subjects that they're not used to doing, like verbal reasoning and non-verbal reasoning. And it can be useful at this point, if you're wanting your child to get into a particular academic school, to seek extra tuition as exam preparation for this, which again is something that we can help you with to make sure that your child is as well prepared for those exams and interviews as possible. Once your child sat the exams, then very shortly after that, you should get a formal offer of a place. You have only a short period of time to accept that formal offer. And when you've accepted it, you are expected to pay a 10% deposit of an annual fee. It's redeemable against your first term's fees, but that's required in order to secure your place. So I think what I've shown you here is that while the process is quite logical and it works through, there's a lot of steps involved and a lot of planning. It's critical to get into the school of your choice. And I would say that 18 months as a minimum is your best bet. Although I have to say, I'm working with families now who have left it a lot later than that, but it's a bit hair raising from time to time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you this, Lucy. We've also had cases where we've running a bit tighter, but definitely it's possible to find a school within a shorter amount of time, correct?
Yes, it is possible for a huge number of schools, and there is a lot of movement in Dubai schools because there is still quite a transitory nature to the city. So even if your child has to join a wait list, you probably will find that there is movement on that. I would say that April is when a lot of stuff, prior to a September start, is when a lot of stuff is really firmed up. And it can become incredibly difficult after April, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help you because sometimes families don't have that information. They don't know they're going to move. because work changes, family situations change. So, that's our job, is to get children into the right schools for them at the right time.
Thank you so much. And we're moving on to the next portion of our webinar. And I believe this question will also be to Lucy. So, we normally assume that younger children are thought to adapt very easily, but at least in a case of one of our clients, we've seen the opposite happen. So, what factors make or break an early adjustment? And over to you, Lucy.
Yes, I'll briefly talk about some of the emotional aspects of transitioning to a new school and a new education system, as this is understandably a real concern for so many families that I work with. How can they ensure their child settles into a new school quickly and thrives? Well, adjusting to a new school can be challenging, even in the most familiar of situations. So we do need to take extra care when considering moving internationally. Preparation is key for all children and all parents as well. For the younger children, there are loads of age appropriate storybooks, which are really good at helping to raise the subject and answer questions that you and your child might not even have known they have. Again, for the younger children, drawing pictures of their new school together, making journey maps of how you're going to get there each day can be really useful. I like to talk to children of all ages about the exciting things that they can look forward to in their new school. And it is important, obviously, for them to get a feel for the actual buildings of the school themselves. Take them on a school visit. If they weren't there at the initial choosing of the school, you can always phone up the schools and say, can my child have another visit? Participate in taster days that are available, and I'll talk a bit more about those in a minute. Um, Definitely involve your child in buying the uniform for the school and let them choose new water bottles and backpacks and all that sort of paraphernalia that will make them feel familiar. Crucially, keep the conversation channels open with your child. Let them know it's okay to feel nervous and it's okay to feel unsure about change. You'll be having your own challenges as well when you're moving. Communicate those to your child, that you're no different from them in some ways. Always be there and always be supportive. Now, a good school will have a stated structure in place for settling in new children. And this can involve taster days and settling in days before they start. And often, a lot of schools, particularly for the older children, will have new starters starting the day before or 2 days before the rest of the school. It's really important that your child attends these days if possible, because they give them a chance to get to know the buildings, get to know their surroundings, get their logons for the computers, get to know their teachers, and it can just make their first days a lot easier if they've got to know a few new starters as well. There are no hard and fast rules about how long the settling in process will take, and it doesn't make any difference whether your child is old or young. It just depends on the child at that moment. It doesn't indicate how they'll be when they're older, it just reflects how they are in this moment. If you are concerned about your child and their settling, your first port of call would be to talk to your child's teacher. Your child may be exhibiting different signs at home than at school, and also showing your child that you have a relationship with their teacher is going to always help them in making school feel a less alien place for your child.
Yes, for sure. And very important, a day before. It makes it a little bit less scary before
Yeah.
joining. Thank you so much, Lucy. So, moving on to an beyond a Dubai education, what can we expect? So, I believe this is a question for John, if I'm not mistaken. How much does school choice at this age shape a child's future learning path?
Thanks, Shane. Yes, it's really important, as you can imagine. I think we all want the best possible start for our children. And at the end of the day, you only get one shot at your child's education. So making sure that they're into the best school for them, not necessarily the best school, but the best school for them is really, really important. You want to make sure that your child or your children are going into schools where there are universally recognized qualifications, because whatever their passions and whatever their strengths and weaknesses, you just want them to have the best options when it comes to graduating and going off to university and into employment. And so making sure that the school offers the right qualifications for your child and also prepares them in the right way for the universities of their choice, whether that's A levels or IB, is really, really important. So getting that right at the very beginning is pretty crucial. Making sure that you find a school where your child is happy, where they're motivated, where you can imagine them making great friends, where you can feel that the culture will encourage them to get involved, not just academically, but also in terms of the sport and the music and the drama and the charitable work and the outreach that they might do, and participate in debating club and model UN, etc. That's so important, because those are the activities where not only will they build their confidence because they find themselves, but also because they'll make new friends, and that will encourage them to be even better versions of themselves over time. So finding the right school that enables that culture and that opportunity is really, really important in terms of not just broadening their horizons, but also enabling them to make really valuable connections for when they go to university and or when they go into employment in the future. Having a network of key people is always very, very helpful for a whole range of reasons that we already know. Making sure that it's a school that the family feels comfortable with as well, because as Lucy's just mentioned, that relationship between home and school is invaluable. So if a child is flourishing at school and the parent is supportive of the school, then that is the ideal mix that will enable the child to succeed and will set them up for the best possible outcomes in the future.
Right. Thank you so much, John. We have a question that I'll want to definitely get to at the Q&A stage by Miss Sophia. She says, how do you guide students that want to pursue music conservatories after secondary school? So I think this is a good question, perhaps for the Q&A session. Moving on, we know that Dubai is renowned for being really expensive. So how much does a school really cost compared to somewhere else in the world? Over to you, Lucy.
Yes, Dubai is an expensive place. There's no getting away from that. But interestingly, school fees are okay. There's huge variation in the school fees in Dubai. On average, they're not as expensive as you might fear. In the table that you can see at the moment, at every level, average school fees in Dubai are lower than their UK or mainland Europe counterparts. Having said that, the range in Dubai is much greater. The cheap schools are really very, very cheap. And there is one day school that has recently caused headlines because it has broken the 200,000 dirham barrier for a day school, which is extraordinary. There are only 2 boarding schools in Dubai currently, so it's difficult to compare those. But again, if you require a boarding school provision, it's not as expensive as you would find in the UK or in Europe. So on the whole, school fees are not prohibitive in Dubai.
Oops, right. Thank you so much. Every parent wants the best for their child to reach their potential, to be successful, and to lead a fulfilled life. Giving them the best education is the cornerstone of this, but what else can parents do to help?
There's loads parents can do to help, and I find that every parent is motivated entirely by getting the best outcomes for their child. So when your child starts secondary or high school, it can be useful to consider which country you might envisage your child at university. You might find it useful to choose a secondary curriculum that segues into the university curriculum of choice. However, I would say that this is not essential, as top universities around the world will recognise a wide range of school leaving qualifications. But it might help focus your mind and your child's mind on where they want to end up. In addition, if your child has specific career aspirations, example for becoming a doctor, it's essential that they don't cut out subjects that will be essential for medical school entry. So, for example, if you want to be a doctor, you have to do chemistry all the way through your schooling. You can't give it up at any point. There are also a number of low stakes profiling tools that can be utilised to help ensure that your child's goals align with their strengths. Through a combination of discussion with your child, academic profiling, career guidance, internships, and work experience, a picture of your child's future can begin to be created. It's worth bearing in mind, though, that many teenagers don't actually have a clear idea at all about what their future career will be. And as parents, our job is to help them keep their options open, keep the conversations flowing, and facilitate their wider experiences. If you or your child feel that they need additional support in mapping out a university and career path, all schools are able to help. At least they can do at a general level. Schools will have guidance and careers counsellors. However, the quality of them can be patchy. So I would recommend using the services of a private company like us, who can really explore your child's strengths, weaknesses, and passions. It can be invaluable, and we can help you put in place suitable work experience and internship experiences so that your child can achieve their goals. It is common in Dubai, as it is around the world, for students to take additional tutoring outside of school. This is generally started in the year or so prior to exam years to boost grades and confidence. If your child has additional needs or requires longer term support, this is something that can be discussed individually. We can help with ensuring children and young people receive the assessments and diagnoses they need in order to receive the support they need, both in school and out of school.
Thank you so much for this, Lucy. So I believe this is the last of our presentation slides. What does an excellent university transition support look like, especially for families sending their first child abroad? And I believe this would be John taking forward. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Shane. Yes, in terms of university transition, it's very similar to what Lucy was describing for school transition, but obviously in a slightly different setting. One of the key elements in ensuring that your child is prepared for the next step in terms of their educational journey is helping them with their confidence levels and also with their levels of familiarity. So if you've got a good idea at the age of 15, 16, 17 of where your child might want to go to university or where you would like them to go, planning a family trip to visit as many of those universities, either on their campus or in the cities that they're located, is a really, really important way of taking the stress out of the situation and making a university campus and or a city and or a move to another country less intimidating. It really helps tremendously. Understanding the summer school options that many of the universities around the world offer is also really important. Many of them will offer academic pre-university preparation courses. These are a wonderful opportunity for young students, typically in the final 2 years of high school, to live on campus, to participate in activities in the facilities that normal undergraduates would ordinarily use, an opportunity to meet faculty members, potentially even be taught by them to get a sense of what the experience is like and what the relationships could feel like. That's really, really important as well. So summer schools are also a really good way of getting immersed in the situation and growing confidence and feeling a lot more familiar. attending open days, ideally in person. There are a lot of online open days nowadays for universities around the world, but again, there's nothing better than visiting in person and getting in front of the key people that you will be working and learning alongside in the future. Of course, there's going to be some school support in the form of guidance counsellors in all schools in Dubai. But as you can imagine, you might be looking at the UK for your university options and also Australia and New Zealand, or alternatively, you could be looking at the US and or staying in the UAE. Not all guidance counsellors have the skills to cover all of those different um, opportunities and options. So again, tapping into that's important up to a point, but the best admission support that you're going to get is from an admissions advisor and an educational advisor like Lucy and myself, and through our team. The competition internationally and even within the UAE to get into the best universities since the pandemic has increased dramatically. There's been a flight to quality. So to get into the best universities, you have to accept that the admittance rates are below 5% for most universities. So in addition to the guidance counsellors within the schools, if you can be working with admissions advisors and educational advisors like Lucy and myself, we can give you that competitive edge. We can prepare you for those interviews. We can help you with those essays. We can help you with any preparation that you might need. So it's really, really important. And also, just finally, one of the biggest differentiators in applying to universities that we can help with are things like internships and work experiences, which help build the student's profile before they actually apply to universities. And so again, if you don't have that support in country to help you guide to the right company or to the right charity to help get that experience, then you could potentially be losing out because your profile isn't as strong as perhaps some of the others that are applying from different countries around the world.
Thank you so much, John. I just want to give a little tidbit. I went to a summer school for 2 years before I went to university. So before my final year of high school, I did, because final year of high school had to focus on the final exams. But yes, it made a total difference. You go into a different environment, you learn how to take care of yourself. And also, the internships is a pretty great experience. So I think it really does help to get your children into these things before coming into university. So we're wrapping up with the key takeaways. Over to both John and Lucy for this one, and we'll head to Q&A sessions afterwards. Over
Thanks,
to you
Shiny.
guys.
Thank you. So I'm going to be really brief about my key takeaway because a lot of it's on the screen here. Dubai's offering educationally is exciting in itself before you even consider the onward opportunities that it offers. I think Dubai is a fantastic place for families looking for a modern global education with strong university links and really high-end facilities.
Thanks, Lucy. And I think my takeaway from Dubai schooling is that if you're looking to give your child or your children the best opportunities internationally, then Dubai schoolings, because of its world-class facilities, its outstanding teaching, its globally recognized qualifications, and with the support of Dawia and Constellation Education, really allow your child to have the best options possible, whatever that might look like. When children are young at the age of 10, 11, 12, it's really difficult to know where are they going to end up? What are their passions going to be? But what you want to be able to do is set them up for success, and making the right choices around the correct school, the best school for them, and then supporting them along their way in terms of nurturing their talents, encouraging their passions, and providing them with the support that they need when it becomes challenging in the examination period in high school is something that you will never regret doing. It's the best investment that you will make for your most precious asset, and those are your children.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. That concludes our presentation for today. We'll now jump into the Q&A panel, and we've got lots and lots of interesting questions. So maybe we'll start with how to manage entry tests remotely for young children.
That's something that I can answer, Shaheen, if that's okay. So
Please go ahead. Yes.
entry tests for children online is something that can be quite frightening for families and also for the children themselves. But hopefully, what you've picked up from this webinar is that both Lucy and myself and our colleagues that work at Constellation Education, we're not agents. We've worked in education all of our careers. We've been teachers initially, and we've moved up through different positions to be responsible for lots of children in lots of different settings. So, one of the key things in helping a child perform really well online in an admissions test is preparing them beforehand and talking to them, taking the mystery out of the online assessments, and almost coaching them, even though they're young. They're really intelligent children. Sometimes we forget that. And the right approach, the right temperament, the right encouragement actually will set them up and give them the right preparation to tackle any online assessments, however scary that might be. And of course, if you're using admissions and education advisors like Lucy and myself, we'll be in direct contact with many of these schools and with many of these universities. And if things don't quite work out how they were supposed to, for whatever reason, maybe the child isn't in the right frame of mind, or maybe there's an internet connection problem, or maybe something goes wrong, then we can be that interface to make sure that it isn't the end of the world, that actually there's another way of getting through this process, or we can potentially have the assessment taken a second time.
Thank you. And just not any contribution, but I have helped in the past a few of our clients to get into schools, and I've had to manage as well setting up super early meeting times for them. Sometimes they're 3-4 hours behind and they have to join really early before going to school. So something that you guys touched on in terms of talking to them beforehand, telling them that this is preparation for school entry, and all of these things are I believe helpful to them for before entering. So there was another question in the chat. How do you understand the child even when parents might struggle to? So if you can give us a little nugget of what you guys do.
Well, I think understanding children, there's an assumption that because you're their parent, then you're going to understand them. And I think you need to come away from that a bit, because sometimes parents are so involved and so keen to understand their children that it can be tricky if you have a child who you can't quite work out what's making them tick. And that's where a third party can be really helpful, both for you to talk to as a parent and for the child to talk to, because sometimes a slightly external view who knows the situation and has had conversations with you can give you a perspective on your child, whether the bit you don't understand about them is whether they've got no aspirations to follow the family business, or they want to go off and join the circus, or that they are incredibly stressed when they come from a families where maybe you're quite a relaxed family and you have a child who's very uptight. And all of these things are normal. Our children are not carbon copies of ourselves as parents. And sometimes just talking to somebody and I do this a lot with families, is just talking to the parents about their children and the children about their parents, and then having conversations together. It can really help to pick apart some of the emotion that's involved in it and realize where the child is coming from. They've often got really good motivations towards why they are the way they are. And parents, they can feel, there's a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into the reasons why parents can and children stop understanding each other, but it's generally completely sortable, outable, and that's what we're here to help you do and make sure everyone's happy in where they're doing it.
Right. John, do you have anything to add to all of that?
No, I think as I mentioned before, Lucy's background and my background is embedded in education. We got into schooling because we're passionate about children, and so through our experiences, we completely understand the dynamics between parents and children. We are parents ourselves. We've had children that have gone through international schooling and are in university and or in employment. So we've probably seen most scenarios, and whilst there's never any one single answer, it's often a complicated answer. We have a tremendous success rate in helping both parents and children understand one another and help and enable them to be successful. And it's often about listening to them and gently guiding them in the right direction.
I think that's very beautifully put. Thank you guys so much for this. And then there's another question from Miss Sophia Anderson. How do you guide students that want to pursue music conservatories after secondary school?
Yes, so that's a really good question, and again, is quite precise in terms of the entry requirements for gaining entry into conservatoires or to studying music, in effect, wherever that might be in the world, whether it's in Europe or in the UK or possibly into North America. There are some quite precise requirements in terms of admissions of entry into conservatoires. And so preparing children in their high school is really, really important, because not only are conservatoires academically demanding, and it's important to get the right academic results in the examinations that you're going to be sitting, but obviously there's a competitive element to it in terms of the music requirements, which include demonstrating your excellence in at least one aspect of music, whether that's through your voice or whether that's through instrumentation. Of course, there's also an interview as well. So it's really, really important that students are prepared in the right way. And the standards, certainly for conservatoires in and music schools in the UK and in Europe, you're typically looking at grade 8 and above, potentially even diploma qualification standard from either ABRSM or Trinity, to even become competitive for admissions to music schools around the world. So one of the things that as education advisors we can help with prior to the admissions process is making sure that the students have the right setting within a school, because schools are going to have to allow them to practice every day, not just after school, but during the school timetable. They're going to also have to offer lots of opportunity for the students to perform, because that's a really important part in their development. So helping them find the right school, liaising with the school to ensure that they are given the right support is really, really important. And of course, communicating with the different universities around the world they want to be admitted into is also important in understanding what are their requirements. Can they do the assessment online? Do they have to go and perform? Does it have to be a professional performance, or can it just be a private individual performance that they submit? So there are lots of things that we can do prior to their admissions to make sure that they have the right teaching, that they have the right environment, that they have the right setup in the schools, and that internationally they are in the best position possible to get into the music school or conservatoire they want to get into, because it's not easy. Although Dubai has a huge number of opportunities for young people in music and drama and the performing arts, when you're competing with other students from around the world for world-class conservatoires, you want to make sure that you get the best musicians teaching and encouraging and helping you. And that's where we can step in and support and make sure that that's in place.
Thank you so much, John. Lucy, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I was going to say is that there are schools in Dubai that would specifically help with that, where they've got close established relationships with the Juilliard system, for example, and we can unpick which schools are going to be the best at preparing your child in the performing arts. That's all.
Right. So, Miss Sophia, we can reach out to you so that you can have an assessment with John and Lucy for a more tailored approach on what your requirement would be. And I think we have time for one or two more questions. So there's a question from Miss Olusola from, I believe, Nigeria. What are the opportunities for student scholarships? So are there any scholarships that they can apply to for university over here?
Yes, so there are increasingly a number of scholarships that students can apply for within universities here in the UAE. And the good news is that there are currently 11 universities in the UAE that are globally ranked by either the Times Higher Education or the QS global rankings. Again, it might surprise people, but more than 35% of graduates from international schools in the UAE attend university in country. So whilst there are a growing number of universities, national universities, as well as internationally recognised universities from the UK, the US, and from Australia in particular, competition is getting pretty fierce. And so preparation for admissions to universities in the UAE needs careful planning. And if a student is keen to be considered for a scholarship, which will be based on merit rather than financial needs, then again, a lot of preparation is required, because there are lots of students that perhaps want merit-based scholarships, either for academic potential, for sports potential, or for dramatic or musical potential. So again, it's not something anymore that you can simply apply for. It's a competition, and you really need to understand how to go about navigating that system and putting your child in the best place.
Yeah, so I think also Miss Olusola, John would be able to make a plan if your child is still in high school, or you're helping any students back home in getting university access to Dubai. So John would be available to get these assessments with you and plan out what that process would be like. So I think we have time for one more question. We have a question from our client. His daughter is 13 years old, plays tennis pro. John or Lucy, how would you go about helping the situation?
I think it's very similar to the question about the conservatoire or the music school internationally at their education level. If a child is already a tennis pro at the age of 13, then I would assume that they're already on an elite. And therefore, that would need a lot of additional support in country and quite a bit of liaison with the school. especially when it comes to practicing on a daily basis. And also, if you're tennis pro at that age, you will be expected to compete internationally, and therefore you're going to be away from school for considerable of time. And there are two elements to that. One, you need to find a school that's happy to facilitate that. And then secondly, whilst your daughter is playing international tennis and on the circuit, they're going to need educating. So who's going to provide that online education whilst they're away? Will it be the school? Possibly, probably not. But again, using education advisors like Lucy and myself, we can put a facility in place that allows them continuity of education, which is really, really important. And let's hope that they continue to progress and they become a professional in their adult life.
I was
But
just going to say, I think she's around 18. She's going into university quite soon.
okay,
So
okay.
is that different?
It's not different in a sense that if you want to attend the best universities for tennis in the world, then you're probably looking at either the US or Australia. Those are the two strongest programs at higher education level. And of course, that's incredibly competitive as well. And then when you get into the realms of sports scholarships, you're probably looking mainly at the US because Australia typically doesn't offer sports scholarships. Interestingly, they offer a lot of academic scholarships, but they don't offer many, if any, sports scholarships. So you're probably looking at the US. And again, the lead in time for admissions in general terms to the US is a minimum of 18 months. If you're looking at competitive entry for scholarships to some of the Division One sports programs that will allow you to compete nationally within the US and internationally, and or allow you to play on the pro circuit, then that requires quite a lot of intervention and engagement with those universities to make sure that it's the right program for um, their daughter.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to ask this one last question because I think it's important. So sorry if we go a little bit above time. So, will we need Ministry of Education equivalency of our degrees when coming after a bachelor's to take a master's? Or, for example, you're coming into the UAE for a first job. Do you need a Ministry of Education equivalency or attestation as well? To secure a job.
Um, Typically not a job, as long as it's an undergraduate degree from a recognized university in a country that we've heard of. It typically doesn't matter. When it comes to doing master's degrees, again, it's really important that it's an undergraduate degree that is globally recognized. Think it depends on what kind of master's degree you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing something that is postgraduate in a sector that requires entry exams such as law or medicine or potentially even engineering, then it's really important that it is approved by the Ministry of Education. But if it's generally just for master's degree within a UAE university, then as long as your undergraduate degree, you've got the original transcript and you've got the degree itself and it's in English, not in Latin, which a lot of degrees are, then that's typically enough to get your employment status and or employability and or onto a master's degree course.
Right, so I think that concludes our session today. We hope that it was informative. Thank you so much to our speakers and for all of you joining us. So just going to give a little bit wraparound of Dawia services. Whether you're actively relocating or just exploring, we're here to help. So Dawia Family Office, we cater to the whole family needs, and we work very closely with Constellation Group, John and Lucy, to help us in terms of the family aspect. So this is our fifth service, which is personal and family relocation, personal banking, and then education for your children. So schedule a consultation if you'd like to know more about educational support services here in the UAE. Thank you so much for attending our webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Our next, thank you so much. Just a little, our next subject will be on compliance and audit registration in May. And yes, looking forward for a next time. Thank you so much, John and Lucy, for today.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Shane.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.